Welcome to Bible Quizzes. Today's quiz is all about the Old Testament. Are you ready? Let's begin. 1. Which prophet's vision included a valley of dry bones? Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ezekiel. Ezekiel 37, 1-2. The hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me in the middle of a valley. It was full of bones. 2. In which book of the Old Testament is the phrase, "Vanity of vanities, all is vanity," found? Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Job, Psalms. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes 1:2. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. 3. Which object was placed in the Ark of the Covenant as a testimony? The rod of Aaron, the staff of Moses, 10 commandments, a jar of manna. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is the rod of Aaron. Numbers 17:10. The Lord said to Moses, "Put back Aaron's staff in front of the ark of the covenant law to be kept as a sign to the rebellious." 4. Which book describes a woman being turned into a pillar of salt? Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Genesis, Genesis 19:26. But Lot's wife looked back and she became a pillar of salt. 5. Which prophet was told to marry a prostitute as a symbol of Israel's unfaithfulness? Amos, Micah, Joel, Hosea. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Hosea, Hosea 1:2. When the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, "Go, marry a promiscuous woman and have children with her, for like an adulterous wife, this land is guilty of unfaithfulness to the Lord." 6. In which book is the story of Balaam and his talking donkey found? Exodus, Deuteronomy, Numbers, Judges. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Numbers, Numbers 22:28. Then the Lord opened the donkey's mouth, and it said to Balaam, "What have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times?" 7. Who was the judge of Israel who made a rash vow that led to the sacrifice of his daughter? Gideon, Samson, Barak, Jephthah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jephthah, Judges 11:30-31. And Jephthah made a vow to the Lord, "If you give the Ammonites into my hands, whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return in triumph from the Ammonites will be the Lord's, and I will sacrifice it as a burnt offering." 8. Which book contains the account of the sun standing still? Exodus, Joshua, 1 Kings, Judges. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Joshua, Joshua 10:13. So the sun stood still and the moon stopped till the nation avenged itself on its enemies. 9. Which prophet saw a vision of a wheel within a wheel? Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Zechariah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ezekiel, Ezekiel 1:16. This was the appearance and structure of the wheels. They sparkled like topaz, and all 4 looked alike. Each appeared to be made like a wheel intersecting a wheel. 10. In which book do we find the verse, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want"? Job, Proverbs, Psalms, Isaiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Psalms. Psalm 23:1. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. 11. Which Old Testament book begins with the line, "The vision of Isaiah, the son of Amos"? Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Amos. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Isaiah, Isaiah 1:1, the vision of Isaiah, the son of Amos, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. 12. Who was struck with leprosy for speaking against Moses? Korah, Dathan, Aaron, Miriam. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Miriam. Numbers 12:10. When the cloud lifted from above the tent, Miriam's skin was leprous, it became as white as snow. 13. Which book contains the prophecy of the Messiah being born in Bethlehem? Isaiah, Zechariah, Malachi, Micah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Micah, Micah 5:2. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times. 14. Which Old Testament book details the rebuilding of the walls of Jerusalem? Ezra, Nehemiah, 2 Chronicles, Haggai. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Nehemiah, Nehemiah 6:15. So the wall was completed on the 25th of Elul in 52 days. 15. Which king of Judah was struck with disease because he entered the temple to burn incense? Uzziah, Hezekiah, Manasseh, Josiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Uzziah. 2 Chronicles 26:19. Uzziah, who had a censer in his hand ready to burn incense, became angry. While he was raging at the priests in their presence before the incense altar in the Lord's temple, leprosy broke out on his forehead. 16. Which prophet was instructed to bake bread using human dung as fuel, symbolizing Israel's defilement? Jeremiah, Hosea, Amos, Ezekiel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ezekiel, Ezekiel 4:12. Eat the food as you would a loaf of barley bread. Bake it in the sight of the people, using human excrement for fuel. 17. Which prophet declared, "For 3 sins of Israel, even for 4, I will not turn back my wrath"? Amos, Joel, Micah, Habakkuk. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Amos, Amos 2:6. This is what the Lord says, "For 3 sins of Israel, even for 4, I will not relent. They sell the innocent for silver and the needy for a pair of sandals." 18. Which Old Testament book contains a lengthy description of the wife of noble character? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Proverbs, Proverbs 31:10. A wife of noble character who can find, she is worth far more than rubies. 19. Who was the high priest who supported Adonijah's claim to the throne instead of Solomon's? Zadok, Abiathar, Eli, Ahimelech. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Abiathar, 1 Kings 1:7. Adonijah conferred with Joab son of Zeruiah and with Abiathar the priest, and they gave him their support. 20. In which book does the prophet see a vision of a flying scroll? Isaiah, Jeremiah, Zechariah, Ezekiel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Zechariah, Zechariah 5:1-2. I looked again, and there before me was a flying scroll. He asked me, "What do you see?" I answered, "I see a flying scroll, 20 cubits long and 10 cubits wide." 21. Which book of the Old Testament ends with the rebuilding of the temple? Nehemiah, 2nd Chronicles, Haggai, Ezra. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ezra. Ezra 6:15. The temple was completed on the third day of the month Adar in the 6th year of the reign of King Darius. 22. Which book contains the prophecy, "The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel"? Isaiah, Zechariah, Micah, Hosea. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Isaiah, Isaiah 7:14. Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son and will call him Emmanuel. 23. Which king of Israel constructed two golden calves for the people to worship? Solomon, Rehoboam, Ahab, Jeroboam. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jeroboam, 1 Kings 12:28. After seeking advice, the king made two golden calves. He said to the people, "It is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Here are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." 24. Which Old Testament prophet foretold the coming of a messenger who would prepare the way for the Lord? Isaiah, Malachi, Jeremiah, Zechariah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Malachi, Malachi 3:1. I will send my messenger who will prepare the way before me. Then suddenly the Lord you are seeking will come to his temple. The messenger of the covenant whom you desire will come. 25. In which book is the Song of the Vineyard found? Psalms, Jeremiah, Song of Solomon, Isaiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Isaiah, Isaiah 5:1. I will sing for the one I love, a song about his vineyard. My loved one had a vineyard on a fertile hillside. 26. Which prophet confronted King David with the parable of the rich man and the poor man's lamb? Samuel, Gad, Elijah, Nathan. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Nathan, 2 Samuel 12:1-4. The Lord sent Nathan to David. When he came to him, he said, "There were two men in a certain town, one rich and the other poor." 27. Who was the king of Judah when the book of the law was found in the temple? Hezekiah, Manasseh, Asa, Josiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Josiah, 2 Kings 22:8. Hilkiah the high priest said to Shaphan the secretary, "I have found the book of the law in the temple of the Lord." 28. Which book is a collection of funeral songs lamenting the fall of Jerusalem? Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Lamentations, Lamentations 1:1. How deserted lies the city, once so full of people. How like a widow is she who once was great among the nations. 29. Which prophet witnessed the glory of the Lord departing from the temple? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ezekiel. Ezekiel 10:18 to 19. Then the glory of the Lord departed from over the threshold of the temple and stopped above the cherubim. 30. Which prophet is known for the vision of the four chariots? Daniel, Zechariah, Malachi, Ezekiel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Zechariah. Zechariah 6:1. I looked up again, and there before me were four chariots coming out from between two mountains, mountains of bronze. 31. Which prophet described the day of the Lord as a day of darkness and gloom? Joel, Amos, Isaiah, Malachi. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Joel. Joel 2:2. A day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and blackness, like dawn spreading across the mountains, a large and mighty army comes. 32. Who had a vision of an angel touching his lips with a live comb? Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Daniel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Isaiah. Isaiah 6:6 to 7. Then one of the seraphim flew to me with a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with tongs from the altar. With it he touched my mouth and said, See, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away and your sin atoned for. 33. In which book do we find the prophecy, They will look on me, the one they have pierced? Isaiah, Zechariah, Jeremiah, Micah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Zechariah. Zechariah 12:10. And I will pour out on the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and supplication. They will look on me, the one they have pierced, and they will mourn for him as one mourns for an only child. 34. Which prophet warned the people of Judah about the coming destruction by Babylon? Isaiah, Ezekiel, Zephaniah, Jeremiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jeremiah. Jeremiah 25:9. I will summon all the peoples of the north and my servant Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, declares the Lord, and I will bring them against this land and its inhabitants and against all the surrounding nations. 35. Which prophet saw a vision of a basket of ripe fruit symbolizing the end of Israel? Amos, Hosea, Nehemiah, Micah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Amos. Amos 8:1-2. This is what the sovereign Lord showed me, a basket of ripe fruit. What do you see, Amos? He asked. A basket of ripe fruit, I answered. Then the Lord said to me, The time is ripe for my people Israel. I will spare them no longer. 36. In which book do we find the account of the Tower of Babel? Exodus, Genesis, Leviticus, Numbers. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Genesis. Genesis 11:4. Then they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. 37. Which prophet saw a vision of the New Jerusalem with a river of life flowing from the temple? Ezekiel, Isaiah, Zechariah, Joel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ezekiel, Ezekiel 47:1. The man brought me back to the entrance of the temple, and I saw water coming out from under the threshold of the temple toward the east, for the temple faced east. 38. Who was the prophet that confronted King Ahab and his wife Jezebel? Elisha, Elijah, Isaiah, Nathan. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Elijah. 1 Kings 21:20. Ahab said to Elijah, "So you have found me, my enemy." "I have found you," he answered, "because you have sold yourself to do evil in the eyes of the Lord." 39. Which Old Testament character was known for his extreme wealth and wisdom? David, Solomon, Hezekiah, Nebuchadnezzar. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Solomon, 1 Kings 10:23-24. King Solomon was greater in riches and wisdom than all the other kings of the earth. The whole world sought audience with Solomon to hear the wisdom God had put in his heart. 40. Which prophet described Israel as a harlot for its unfaithfulness to God? Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Hezekiah, Hosea. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Hosea. Hosea 1:2. When the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, "Go, marry a promiscuous woman and have children with her, for like an adulterous wife, this land is guilty of unfaithfulness to the Lord." 41. Which Old Testament character was swallowed by a great fish? Noah, Moses, Elijah, Jonah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Jonah, Jonah 1:17. Now the Lord provided a huge fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. 42. Which book describes the fall of the city of Jericho? Judges, Joshua, 2 Kings, 1 Samuel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Joshua, Joshua 6:20. When the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed, so everyone charged straight in and they took the city. 43. Which Old Testament figure was known for his dreams and interpretations? Joseph, Daniel, Solomon, Samuel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Joseph, Genesis 37:5. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. 44. Which book records the Israelites' exodus from Egypt? Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Numbers, Exodus. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Exodus, Exodus 12:41. At the end of the 430 years, to the very day, all the Lord's divisions left Egypt. 45. Which prophet foresaw the coming of a ruler out of Bethlehem? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Micah, Micah 5:2. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times. 46. Who was the prophet that was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind? Elijah, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Elisha. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Elijah, 2 Kings 2:11. As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. 47. Which book contains the story of Samson and Delilah? 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, Judges, Ruth. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Judges, Judges 16:6. So Delilah said to Samson, "Tell me the secret of your great strength and how you can be tied up and subdued." 48. Which Old Testament character was known for his extreme patience and endurance? Moses, Job, Daniel, David. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Job, Job 1:21, and said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." 49. Which prophet described the destruction of Nineveh? Jonah, Nahum, Zephaniah, Micah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Nahum, Nahum 1:8. But with an overwhelming flood, he will make an end of Nineveh. He will pursue his foes into darkness. 50. Which prophet declared, "The just shall live by faith"? Isaiah, Jeremiah, Habakkuk, Zechariah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Habakkuk, Habakkuk 2:4. See, the enemy is puffed up. His desires are not upright, but the righteous person will live by his faithfulness. 51. Which book recounts the story of David and Goliath? 1 Kings, 2 Samuel, 1 Samuel, Judges. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 1 Samuel, 1 Samuel 17:50. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. 52. Which Old Testament figure was set adrift in a basket on the Nile as an infant? Joseph, Samuel, Joshua, Moses. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Moses, Exodus 2:3. But when she could hide him no longer, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in it and put it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile. 53. Which book tells of the birth of Samuel, the last judge of Israel? 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, Judges, Ruth. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 1 Samuel, 1 Samuel 1:20. So in the course of time, Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, "Because I asked the Lord for him." 54. Which book describes the Israelites crossing the Jordan River on dry ground? You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Joshua, Joshua 3:17. The priests who carried the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord stopped in the middle of the Jordan and stood on dry ground while all Israel passed by until the whole nation had completed the crossing on dry ground. 55. Which book contains the prophecy of the suffering servant? Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Daniel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Isaiah, Isaiah 53:3. He was despised and rejected by mankind, a man of suffering and familiar with pain. Like one from whom people hide their faces, he was despised, and we held him in low esteem. 56. Which Old Testament figure led the Israelites into the Promised Land? Moses, Joshua, Caleb, Aaron. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Joshua. Joshua 1:2. Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I am about to give to them, to the Israelites. 57. Which prophet predicted the fall of Babylon? Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Daniel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Isaiah, Isaiah 13:19. Babylon, the jewel of kingdoms, the pride and glory of the Babylonians, will be overthrown by God like Sodom and Gomorrah. 58. Which Old Testament character was known for his incredible strength? Gideon, Samson, David, Saul. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Samson, Judges 16:3. But Samson lay there only until the middle of the night. Then he got up and took hold of the doors of the city gate, together with the two posts, and tore them loose, bar and all. 59. Which prophet was commanded to lie on his side for 390 days to symbolize Israel's sin? Jeremiah, Isaiah, Daniel, Ezekiel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ezekiel, Ezekiel 4:4-5. Then lie on your left side and put the sin of the people of Israel upon yourself. You are to bear their sin for the number of days you lie on your side. 60. Which book records the account of the fiery furnace? Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, 2 Kings. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Daniel, Daniel 3:21-22. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. 61. Which prophet's book begins with a vision of locusts? Joel, Amos, Zephaniah, Habakkuk. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Joel. Joel 1:4. What the locust swarm has left, the great locusts have eaten. What the great locusts have left, the young locusts have eaten. What the young locusts have left, other locusts have eaten. 62. Which book tells of the first Passover? Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Numbers. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Exodus, Exodus 12:11. This is how you are to eat it, with your cloak tucked into your belt, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. Eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. 63. Which book contains the prophecy, "They shall beat their swords into plowshares"? Isaiah, Micah, Jeremiah, Joel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Isaiah, Isaiah 2:4. He will judge between the nations and will settle disputes for many peoples. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. 64. Which Old Testament character was a Moabite who became an ancestor of King David? Hannah, Ruth, Esther, Deborah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Ruth, Ruth 4:17. The women living there said, "Naomi has a son," and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. 65. Which prophet foretold the destruction of Edom? Obadiah, Jonah, Nahum, Micah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Obadiah. Obadiah 1:1. The vision of Obadiah. This is what the sovereign Lord says about Edom. 66. Which book contains the Ten Commandments? Leviticus, Numbers, Exodus, Deuteronomy. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Exodus, Exodus 20:2-3. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. 67. Which Old Testament character was visited by God in a burning bush? Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Moses, Exodus 3:2. There, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. 68. Which book recounts the Israelites' journey in the wilderness? Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Numbers, Numbers 14:33. Your children will be shepherds here for 40 years, suffering for your unfaithfulness until the last of your bodies lies in the wilderness. 69. Which prophet describes a vision of a man with a measuring line? Zechariah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Amos. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Zechariah. Zechariah 2:1-2. Then I looked up, and there before me was a man with a measuring line in his hand. I asked, "Where are you going?" He answered me, "To measure Jerusalem to find out how wide and how long it is." 70. Which book tells of the vision of a statue with a head of gold? Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Isaiah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Daniel, Daniel 2:31-32. Your Majesty looked, and there before you stood a large statue, an enormous dazzling statue, awesome in appearance. The head of the statue was made of pure gold. 71. Which Old Testament figure had a coat of many colors? Joseph, Moses, David, Samson. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Joseph, Genesis 37:3. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. 72. Which prophet foretold the return of Elijah before the coming of the Messiah? Isaiah, Jeremiah, Zechariah, Malachi. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Malachi, Malachi 4:5. See, I will send the prophet Elijah to you before that great and dreadful day of the Lord comes. 73. Which book contains the Song of Deborah? Joshua, Judges, 1 Samuel, 2 Kings. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Judges, Judges 5:1. On that day, Deborah and Barak, son of Abinoam, sang this song. 74. Which Old Testament figure was known for his wisdom in judging disputes? Samuel, David, Solomon, Moses. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Solomon, 1 Kings 3:28. When all Israel heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice. 75. Which prophet describes the day of the Lord as a day of darkness and gloom? Amos, Joel, Zephaniah, Habakkuk. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Joel. Joel 2:2. A day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and blackness. Like dawn spreading across the mountains, a large and mighty army comes, such as never was in ancient times, nor ever will be in ages to come. 76. Which Old Testament king consulted the witch of Endor? David, Saul, Solomon, Ahab. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Saul. 1 Samuel 28:7. Saul then said to his attendants, "Find me a woman who is a medium so I may go and inquire of her." 77. Which Old Testament figure was struck with leprosy after taking spoils from a defeated enemy? Achan, Gehazi, Uzziah, Miriam. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Gehazi, 2 Kings 5:27. Naaman's leprosy will cling to you and to your descendants forever. Then Gehazi went from Elisha's presence, and his skin was leprous. It had become as white as snow. 78. Which prophet wrote about a plumb line as a symbol of God's judgment? Amos, Joseph, Zechariah, Elisha. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Amos, Amos 7:7-8. This is what he showed me. The Lord was standing by a wall that had been built true to plumb, with a plumb line in his hand. 79. Which book contains the story of a floating axe head? 1 Kings, 2 Kings, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is 2 Kings. 2 Kings 6:5-6. As one of them was cutting down a tree, the iron axe head fell into the water. "Oh no, my lord," he cried out. "It was borrowed," the man of God asked. 80. Which Old Testament figure was stoned to death for blasphemy after a false accusation from witnesses? Naboth, Achan, Stephen, Zechariah. You have 10 seconds to answer. The answer is Naboth, 1 Kings 21:13. Then two scoundrels came and sat opposite him and brought charges against Naboth before the people, saying, "Naboth has cursed both God and the king." So they took him outside the city and stoned him to death. That's all we have for you today. How well did you do? Tally your score and post in the comments. Don't forget to share this quiz with your family and friends. See you in the next one. God bless.